to address the problems and suggest possible solutions. We have industry experts who are highly competent to share their views on all the points, but as per the format of the webinar, we requested them to focus on one of the sectors individually. So I request my first keynote speaker, Mr. Satyen Momaya, CEO, Celio. Celio is a French brand present in many countries in the world. Mr. Satyen will discuss how Celio is addressing to this problem worldwide and how he plans to deal this issue in India. Mr. Satyen Momaya, please.
Yeah, hi. Good evening. I think rightfully said, at any point of time for retail, cash flow is an important indicator. But my only submission which I have is, while we know that we've got to liquidate about 30 or 40% of our inventory before we get into September, the only submission is we've got to be little careful on not using deep discounting over a wide spectrum of products. Though it is going to be a challenge because you're not going to get the same amount of consumers coming to your stores last year says if you were to compare, and during end of season sale typically you liquidate about 25-30% of your inventory, but this calls for actually looking at creative solutions instead of just getting into deep discounting. So we will really have to take some cues and learnings from some markets. So just to share with you, we at Celio are working at looking at 3 or 4 options which could help us in coming in terms with the new ways of working. I think if you look at France, where we have about 350 plus stores of ours, the lockdown in France was almost at similar time as in India, but the only difference in France was that e-commerce was allowed for non-essential products also. And if you look at the 2 weeks of March, the second half of March, the e-commerce business, initially the consumers obviously were not interested to buy into apparel, and hence we were seeing about 40 or 50% decline on e-commerce business over previous year. But if you look at April, the first 2 weeks of April, the e-commerce business was about 150% of last year. And the last 2 weeks has been at about 350% of last year. So hence there are consumers who, so summer has set in. So it's a combination of the new summer collection and also on back of some creative discount solutions, which is really helping drive e-commerce business there. And I'm sure in India, the last 3 years, we've been working on a digital blueprint, and we would really like to activate that across all channels, whether it's in our department store partners, whether it's on our retail stores and across MBOs. So I think that's one of it. The second one, which we are really working on, is leveraging data. So there was a study which was done. 78% of the consumers today are responding only to any promotion or any interaction. Even if they are your own CRM consumer base, they are only responding to any promotions or interactions only if you are linking it with their past purchases. So the relevance factor is going higher if you only link it with their past purchases, and that's something which is really becomes very important in the current scheme of things. So, and what we are really working on is leveraging the data, and the part to this starts from centralizing and synthesizing the data from the relevant store point, so that you are able to really personalize interaction, getting the store team involved. So I think that's the second initiative which we're working on. The third one, which we're taking cues from China. I think we know that China has gone through this phase and they are now in the recovery or the return phase. And if you look at what happened in the Nanjing market, there were about 44 million worth coupons which were snapped up in minutes. I know India, it may not be so easy, but I think that's interesting where you dole out discounts, but the discounts are not as proportionately high as or deep discounting, but those have really helped. So if you look at the statistics there, consumers have come back to stores in apparel in first week of April was as low as about 58, 60% of the business of normal times. After the couponing, those markets where there was a joint effort with most brands, those markets have recovered to about 18% lesser than last year. So I think that these are some new ways which we would really like to explore. There's another thing which we are really working on is to give limited access to some inventory, which for us, normally the consumer wouldn't have had access to. These are products which are recently launched internationally. These are products which are trending now or are fashion products with innovation back to it. So these are products which you would really like to get consumers to access to currently. And though they may be limited style option and the spectrum to which we will open will be limited, but I'm sure these are things which could help us balance the deep discounting which will happen. Are we going to discount higher than last year? There's no doubt we will have to discount higher than last year. But for me today, currently, given the biggest challenge of the day or the order of the day is to get consumers interested to come to stores. And I think the important part is that we'll have to strike the balance with new initiatives and try and find some creative solutions. Mr. Sanjay, you're mute, Mr. Sanjay. You're on mute.
Yeah. If I understand it right, you tried to say that in France, probably e-commerce came to as a rescue, where in China, you have been seeing some around 50% or 58% of the consumers coming back to the stores. Right. And for India, you are suggesting that we should avoid deep discounting and we should hold till the end of August or September to handle the situation. Is that right?
Yeah. What I meant is deep discounting across all category of products could be dangerous. So you will have to definitely discount higher than what you would have done.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get consumers interested, but across categories can be detrimental for the brand, not only currently, but in the quarters to come and post end of season sale, because it can create a habit forming for the consumer and for your sales staff on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Momaya. Now I'll invite